When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite, looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Within the gaming world, there are your general gamers, but then there are those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming. If you're one of those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming, we certainly got the place to send you. Scorpion Lair Games. That's right, Scorpion Lair Games is the creators of the true crime hit Killers, the card game. Let's not forget they also have Killers Clothing Company, the profiler game, and things like the 5-Minute Murder channel on YouTube. And we certainly can't forget the new book that is certainly a hit, beyond the headliners, True Crimes, Myths, and Legends. Make sure you visit Jeff and the Scorpion Lair Games on Facebook and everywhere today.
Hi, everybody. My name is James Buckley Jr. I'm the author of a lot of really awesome sports books that I hope you'll enjoy. And check them out. You're listening to Crazy Train Radio.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this next guest has written over 200 books, with many of them being in the sports world. The book we're going to focus on today is on the National Baseball Hall of Fame collection, celebrating the game's greatest players. So let's go ahead and welcome this Sox fan, James Buckley Jr. So, Mr. Buckley,
Call me
your
Jim.
book, Jim. All right. The National Baseball Hall of Fame collection, celebrating the game's greatest players. So, obviously, as I mentioned in the introduction, you have many different books and different topics from individuals to, the gamut. So why doing this book as a collection?
Well, the Baseball Hall of Fame and I have been working together on books for many years. This is actually the third edition of this book. And we just think it's really important for people to get a really good capsule, handy, carry, portable look at the breadth of the amazing people who are in the Hall of Fame. The collection is not designed to be exhaustive. It's really is designed to, in many cases, introduce people to some of the less famous Hall of Famers from the past, and maybe spur some excitement into visiting the Hall of Fame website to find out more, or else going to the Hall of Fame, or just looking up, in the world to find out more about some of the great players of the past. Um, we did a similar version of this book for kids too, which we think is really important. We really want to get the kids of America on the baseball fan continuum. We think it's a great way to kind of introduce kids to the baseball players that we all love, but we had to learn about them somewhere too, and we think this is a great place, a great way to get them started on their love of baseball. So whether adults or kids, it's really an introduction to the members of the Hall of Fame.
Well, I am a member of the Hall of Fame and have been since that would have been 2016 when Griffey and Piazza went in. And unfortunately, the past 2 years, I haven't been able to go up to ceremony and all that fun stuff. But
Yeah, there's nothing like it. If anybody's listening and has a chance to go, and I'm sure, Jonathan, you can back me up, it is one of the most amazing weekends you'll ever spend, especially if you're a big baseball fan. Even if it's not a hero of yours getting in. I went when Carl Yastrzemski was inducted back in '89, who's my hero growing up. And even if you aren't there for somebody, who you've loved your whole life, you're gonna see people you've loved your whole life. One of the things that's really amazing, and we talk about this in the introduction to the book, is how much the Hall of Fame weekend is a reunion for these guys who are in one of the most exclusive clubs in sports. They get together, some of them, this is the only time they see each other all year round. And even if they played 40 years apart, they are in the club and they have a shared language, they have a shared experience. And to see, all these guys sitting around who, grew up watching each other or vice versa, and reconnecting at these events, watching in the early days, watching, Yogi Berra sit down with Mike Piazza, perfect example, a couple of catchers shooting the breeze. So it's really, you get that sense of a real alumni association that these guys really are able to gather in Cooperstown and share their love of the game.
yeah, it's funny you bring that up, the camaraderie and such. But one of the fun stories I heard was from Jim Thome. Not in this format, and love to talk to Jim at some point, but we were actually at a event for the Hall of Fame weekend because Ozzie Smith runs a charity event the Friday of that weekend.
Mhm.
And I had the opportunity to speak with Jim for a few minutes, and he goes, I said, what's your feeling about being one of these select guys in the hall and all that stuff? And he goes, as great as it is, the one thing that really hit me and brought the kid in me out again was my induction weekend. And, everything's nice and planned out for him, the whole bit. And he goes, the Hall of Fame took great care of me, my family, the whole 9 yards. But the thing that hit me was I get to town for my induction weekend, check in the hotel, the whole bit, and the next morning, somebody from the hall, I can't remember, might have been the hall president at the time, but he says, sees Jim getting some breakfast and stuff downstairs. He says, "Hey Jim, when you're done eating stuff, somebody wants to say hello and maybe sit down out in the back patio and talk with you." He said, "Hey, yeah, sure. Who is it? Yeah, I'm curious to know who wants to sit and bullshit with me." The response was Hank Aaron. What? He wants to meet me? He was like, "What? Yeah." He goes, so I ended up going and talking to Hank, and we had a great conversation. But he was just like shell shocked, like, hold on, this legend wants to talk to me? Kind of.
Yeah. No, it really is. And I think what's great to see is and Aaron's a perfect example of that story, is the generosity of the older guys to the newer guys, even though the newer guys are, they're in their 40s and 50s in some case too. But the real legends who have been coming back to this event for 30 or 40 years, this is the highlight of their year. They come back and they really, truly welcome, because they've been fans too. So Aaron watched Jim Thome hit 634 home runs, or a few of them anyway, and wanted to meet him. And I think it's partly because, he's a fan. They're fans of the game. And so they really want to share that. They have that great attitude of camaraderie, as you said, and really wanted to carry on the traditions. And I think it's a really unique thing that happens at that weekend at the Otsego Hotel, by the way, is where you go. And
Yes.
it's impossible for fans to stay there. Don't ask. Induction weekend, the entire hotel is given over to Hall of Famers and their families. There's a great story that I don't think we were able to get into the book, but I did read about when I was doing research that you know how baseball loves to razz the rookies, right? And so when, every year the major league, the rookies have to carry all the bubble gum and the gear, and they have to dress up once in a while. Well, apparently, the Hall of Famers at the Otsego Hotel bar in the evening will sometimes make the new inductees get up and do a little skit or a song. And I believe they made Wade Boggs sing a song once year, the year he got in. So it really, again, it just crystallizes that sense of team that is such a big part of baseball.
And obviously, I have a kind of cool but not so cool Wade Boggs story. I'll have to tell you. I'll send you an email about it or a video clip of it, because of time restraints here. But with the book, I'm curious to know, where did the concept come for putting the chapters together by position and keeping it organized that way?
Yeah, that was my idea. We originally thought about chronologically, but and I apologize for the phone going off in the background.
Yeah, it was the Hall of Fame call, and they want edition 4.
That's how they wanted edition 4. We originally thought about chronologically, but then visually the book would have been very heavily black and white for the first 2/3 of the book. So we really, as a way to create a visual presentation that was quite visually different as you moved through the book. The Hall of Fame classifies players by position somewhat rigidly, actually. Even though guys actually qualify at multiple positions now, there's really a sense of he went in as a kind of thing. There's very careful track kept by fans and by the Hall of how many at each position get in, third base being the rarest of the positions. And so I wanted to continue that sense of organization. So it was a combination of based on the actual way the Hall keeps track of things, as well as to create a visual presentation for fans, because we have photos of all the players that we write about, or nearly all of them, and obviously, for the first 60 odd years, 70 odd years, there's no color photos of Honus Wagner, except baseball cards. So we really wanted to make sure that we created a visual look. Also, it creates a nice sort of way for fans to sort of compare, because you do compare. It's hard. It's easier to compare Albert Pujols to, Hank Greenberg or Lou Gehrig than it is Albert Pujols to, Ken Griffey, you mentioned. They played different positions. They had a different experience of the game. They brought different skills to the table. So by putting them all into a position group, you can read all the first basemen, all the second basemen, and go, oh, okay, I can balance and I can see where this player fits in kind of the order or the pantheon, however you want to put it.
All right, so I will throw this question your way, because this is a debate. It will come up with me and other fans from time to time. And I'm in the Philadelphia area, but I'm an Orioles guy. Have been since I was a little kid. Grew up watching Ripken, the whole bit. But very invested in the Orioles, in the history and all that fun stuff, from when they were even the St. Louis Browns back in the day.
Sure.
So the debate that might come up over a cocktail or two is usually Brooks Robinson and Schmidt for a third baseman.
Yeah.
Who do you think's better and why?
Well, Schmidt, you have to give it to Schmidt. I mean, he really added a full set of baseball skills, power, RBIs, 10 Gold Gloves. Now, Brooks Robinson was probably statistically and visually a better overall fielder, but the hitting can't compare. Schmidt's one of the great sluggers in baseball history, regardless of position. 548 homers, I think, 3 MVP awards. He just brought a little bit more to the table. And this is not knocking Brooks Robinson. He is the best fielding third baseman of all time. But baseball's a two-part game. You really have to do everything well. And I would definitely give the nod to Schmidt on that one.
Okay. So when you're putting something like this together, obviously this is an updated version, like you mentioned. It's been updated a couple times.
Yeah.
But
have to hopefully update it again with our 5 new Hall of Famers. 6.
Exactly. So between that and the other projects you've done, both for adults and children. And
Hmm.
obviously, it's a different scale for writing, but you still want to provide the information and such. What is your research process like?
Well, it's not surprisingly using a library, lots of books, and the internet. I also really enjoy watching interviews with the players as much as I can. That's obviously much more easy to do in the last a couple of decades, and there's a lot of archive stuff out there. The fact that these guys are Hall of Famers means that enormous amounts of research have been done on them. For the most part, a book like this and a lot of the books I write for children, it's not so much a question of finding out something brand new or something unique, but in gathering in lots of information and synthesizing it. So my skill really is to dial down the thousands of words of information I have into the 200 or 300 words that we have for each of these players to really kind of get the essence of that player in a very precise and short and easy to digest way. Even more so for kids, obviously, as we have to take care of levels of vocabulary and language comprehension and reference and context. But I think there's no real secrets. Watching the game for the last years, and also good solid work on based on the work of people before me, the great historians of the game who have covered these things in detail. I would also suggest to people looking to research, again, because it's available, contemporary research is fascinating to read and adds a real layer of depth to what you're writing about. So find a newspaper article from those times. So read about the 1956 World Series. I did a book on perfect games. So reading the reporting on Larson's perfect game the next day in all the New York newspapers. Fascinating, because that they call newspaper journalism back in the day the first draft of history. The same day after, they had several different things that were not exactly the same. So people referencing it and seeing it might have had a slightly different take on what they had seen. The facts were the same, but did Berra jump into Larson's arms? Did Larson run toward Berra? Everybody was watching a different thing. So to read that contemporary information is really fun. I love it. It's just you can go down big rabbit holes tracking down old newspapers. But so reading and trusting the sources, that's really important. I think I'm not just grabbing from Joe Jones's website. I mean, we're using trusted sources of Baseball Reference and the Baseball Hall of Fame, the Major League Baseball, Sports Illustrated, Sporting News. Sporting News has a fantastic archive. They used to be known as the Bible of baseball back in the day. There's a sports library in Los Angeles that I was able to visit for several of my projects, which has gathered 150 years of sports information into file folders and books and collections of clippings and old magazines, and that's super fun. Just spend a day down there looking at sports information is one of my favorite treats. So really, it's a question of gathering in lots of information and then synthesizing it to what you need.
And I appreciate that you mentioned about reliable sources, and that's always key for me. And obviously, in the world outside of sports, there's a whole big thing the past few years of that, but we're not going to get into that. But why were you a Sox fan? I knew you grew up in the Northeast, but what was it about the Sox and Yaz himself?
Yeah, sure. Well, I grew up in New Jersey mostly till I was about 12, and we used to go spend summers on Cape Cod, where my dad had grown up in. He grew up in Newton. So we would be on the summer in Cape Cod for about a month every summer when I was 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. That's when you first start loving baseball, and they have the team there, of course, is the Sox. And so, we're on Cape Cod. This is 1970s. Yaz is the hero of the team. It seemed like a natural. So I connected with him that way, but what was really cemented it was, very strangely, I moved to California when I was 12, and the first person I met, still my best friend, was a guy who had grown up in Boston and was a Red Sox fan. So even though we were 3,000 miles away from Fenway Park, we were able to share our love of the team, and that helped it kind of cement, even though we were on a different coast. So yeah, I've stuck with him ever since. I've infected my son too. The poor kid also loves the Red Sox.
Well, it's cool for me. It was from a historical standpoint, because obviously I'm not old enough to remember Yaz playing, but I had an opportunity to watch his grandson, Mike, in the minor leagues,
Yeah,
and
sure.
now has been doing wonderful in the major leagues. Is he
Yeah,
still with the Giants or
yeah, he helped me win our fantasy league last year. So thank you, Mike Yastrzemski.
right on? So the other thing I thought was kind of cool that I was reading, because we know everything online is 100% accurate,
Hmm.
is you had involvement with a summer league
Yeah,
out there in California. Can you talk a little bit about that?
sure. The Santa Barbara Foresters is a summer college wood bat league, very much like the Cape Cod League, which is very famous back east. Um, we're part of the California Collegiate League, which is a similar deal. Every summer, we get college players from all over the country to come to Santa Barbara, California, where I live, and play baseball for June and July. They then take part in the National Baseball Congress World Series, which is in Wichita, Kansas, and has been held every year since 1937. And in that time, the Foresters have won 10 national championships at the NBC, which is four more than any team in the history of the tournament. We've had 71 guys make the majors, including two of your Orioles, Ryan O'Hearn and James McCann. Both played for the Foresters and helped you guys do well last year. Josh Young of the Texas Rangers was the first guy for our team to win the World Series a couple years ago. Um, and we've got him coming this weekend to our off-season Hall of Fame. He's being inducted into our Hall of Fame. So it's a great summer experience. It's a great way for me to be involved in baseball. I've been able to be pretty much every job you can think. I do the PA. I've done radio play-by-play. I produce a program every summer. We help fundraise. We've had a player stay in the room next to me here for the last couple of summers. It's a really unique way to watch some really super great close-up baseball with wood bats. And these guys come to us. Some of them have never played with wood bats or very rarely. And if they have professional ambitions, obviously they have to play with wood bats. And it changes the game rather dramatically, both as a pitcher and a hitter. And they need experience of that. And we play 6 days a week, which they don't do in college. They play 3 days a week. And so that's another thing they have to get used to is the grind, another game, another game, another game. So they have pro ambitions. We've had 250 guys drafted in the last decade, and 71, like I said, 71 over the past 30 years have made the majors. So it's a great program. We have a lot of fun.
Now, I also was reading that you had involvement as an editor for SI. How long were you associated with them?
Yeah, I was back Sports Illustrated from 1989 to 1995, I believe, are the years. One of my first jobs in sports, and uh, hugely fundamental for me. Learned an incredible amount from a great boss, Larry Keith, who was a longtime writer and editor at the magazine, and we produced special sections for the magazine on all the big events, World Series, Super Bowl, Indy 500, Kentucky Derby. So it was a great learning experience for me to really understand all the parts of producing sports journalism. I look back with it with great fondness, and it set me up on a nice path.
So, is there somebody or a particular topic that you haven't written about but would like to?
Oh, geez. In sports, no. I really, I've written about everything from underwater hockey to indoor lacrosse to the Olympics to the Super Bowl. I've covered World Series and Super Bowls and Indy 500s, and I think of World Cups. I've been to the World Cup. I mean, I'd love to go to a game, a pro soccer game in England, which I've never done, and that would be a great experience to write about. Um, but knock on wood, I've been very fortunate and been able to write about almost anything I've wanted to write about and more. So
Well, what is coming up on the writing front for you?
sure. Well, I've got a for kids, which is my main writing audience, I guess. We have a book just out now called Fearless Firsts: Athletes Who Changed the Game, which is out from Source Books, and that's available on everywhere you buy books. And it's about athletes. It's basically beyond Jackie Robinson. So the more Jackie Robinson obviously was a groundbreaking pioneering person to be the first black player in the 20th century in Major League Baseball. And we knew there were other similar stories in sports. And so my writing partner, Ellen Lebrecq, and I put together a list, and we made a book that tells all about the first people who broke barriers, the first black players in the NFL, the first Hispanic golfer to win a major tournament, Nancy Lopez. We talk about people who have disabilities who broke barriers, women who were the first, Becky Hammond, first woman to coach an NBA team for the Spurs a couple of years ago. So it's a whole book that gathers up famous firsts. And I also have more to the topic of your work today on baseball is I write for a series called Who Was, which is from Penguin Workshop for kids, very popular biography series. And I have Who is Shohei Ohtani coming out in what is this, February, April? It comes out in April. So we're excited about that book. It's already been sold into Japan. It's going to be sold all over the US. And we're really happy about that book because we were able to get his all of his incredible season last year and the Dodgers World Series. So that'll be in April, and I think it's going to be a very popular book.
Absolutely. And Jim Buckley, I appreciate the time. I'm going to share an Amazon link and everything else where they can find your books.
Yep. I also want to plug bookshop.org, which is a great way for people to buy books online through independent bookstores. Amazon does what they do, but bookshop.org supports independent bookstores. So I encourage people to check that out as well. And the athletes the Fearless First book is also available as an audiobook. And that was fun. I got to record the audiobook for that. So that was a fun little bonus part of my work. It's been great. That the Hall of Fame connection has been terrific. I've done 5 books with them so far. We're talking about doing more down the road. We hope to do an update sometime later this year for the new inductees. I was super excited to see Ichiro in. He's absolutely one of my most favorite players of all time. Just a stunning talent and a great guy. I totally agree with CC Sabathia, but I think Andy Pettitte should have got in. I think Dustin Pedroia should have got in, but maybe I'm biased. Okay, I get it. Billy Wagner should have got in 6-7 years ago. When you look at his underlying numbers, just shocking. Like some of the best strikeouts per 9 and whip numbers ever, regardless of reliever or starter or whatever. He absolutely lights out guy. He just wasn't famous. He wasn't Mariano. He wasn't like dramatic. He didn't have a theme song. And I think that's kind of where we're seeing lately in Hall voting is that there's a lot more attention paid to their presence as opposed to their numbers. So everyone was grumpy about Scott Rowland getting in. Well, he deserved it from a numbers standpoint, but no, he was not like the superstar you went to the game to see. So Wagner's a good example of a guy who absolutely deserves to get in by people really understanding what he brought to his teams. And as an old guy, I was happy to see Dave Parker get in because he was a guy you would go to a game and go, I can't wait to see this guy. This guy was an absolute fantastic, incredible athlete, mashed the ball, had one of the best right arms in the outfield ever. Great guy, and so I was happy to see him get in too. So hopefully we'll be able to tell all those stories in the next edition of our National Baseball Hall of Fame collection.
And I will say this in defense of Scott Rowland, and I wasn't a huge fan of him, but being from where I am, at least it wasn't J.D. Drew and had batteries thrown at him. But that's a whole nother story.
There you go. J.D. Drew is not going to get in the Hall of Fame. I think we're safe.
Jim Buckley, thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, Jonathan, thanks for having me on. I appreciate everybody reading the books and appreciate the sports.
Hey there, Friday fans. We know how much you enjoy the movies. Enjoy grabbing your Friday merchandise and interacting with the Friday family, whether it be at conventions or during our particular watch-alongs. Well, when you're looking to get yourself masks, why not check out our friends over at Camp Blood Customs out of New York State and order your specific custom mask from any of the films. All orders are made specifically. Your needs and wants are. Make sure you find Camp Blood Customs on Facebook, Instagram, and all over social media and order yours today.
Hi, this is Jamie Moyer, and you're listening to Crazy Train Radio.